All right, NFL fans, welcome back to another episode of For Your Viewing Pleasure. This is a preview podcast getting you all geared up for Week 6 in the National Football League. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Wesley Coleman. Wesley, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing really good. It's actually a pretty exciting, couple exciting games. I think the game of the year, and then we got the kind of emerging player of the year kind of going on the same weekend. It was a fun weekend of football.
It was sort of.
Well,
Our
I mean,
teams.
besides our team's not doing well.
Well, our teams just lit up the primetime landscape this week. But nonetheless, I was looking at this slate of games and I hadn't looked ahead too far. And before we went on the air, I was like, I just want to take a look. There are some really good matchups. And I think when we get to the sneaky good matchup column, I think there's a couple that I want to bring up for a lot of reasons. But like we start every show with, let's talk about what the primetime matchups are just to get those out of the way. Thursday night football, 49ers Seahawks. Sunday night football. I heard that this game they tried to flex out, but CBS protected another game, rightfully so. And it's Bengals at Giants on Sunday night football. Monday night, Bills and Jets. And now all of a sudden, Jets are interesting after they fire their head coach, Robert Saleh, today. So we'll talk about that. But what do you think about the primetime slate this week?
I mean, you at least have I think the San Francisco Seattle is the one that actually, looks like it's between playoff teams and is for a division title possibly. Seattle losing to the Giants this last week kind of throws a wrench in how excited I was about that game. Because you start questioning what's real.
Yeah.
But I mean, San Francisco hasn't looked great. Seattle until this last week did look like a good team. So this is an important game for not only in their division, but even possibly the NFC 1 seed for later in the year.
Yeah, the Seahawks, and what 2 weeks will do in terms of how we view football teams. The Steelers are 3-0. They're now 3-2. The Seahawks were 3-0. They're now 3-2. The Saints, their first 2 games were just out of this world incredible, and they've dropped 3 in a row. And so we talked about this last week, and before we go on and talk about our categories of the show, I still feel like I have no freaking clue about this league. You agree or disagree?
Yeah, one, there's been a lot of injuries, particularly I think more in the NFC, but injuries have been crazy this year for this early, which is bringing a lot of that back to where we're confused. But yeah, there's definitely. We'll talk about the Bills, I'm sure, but there's teams that have lost to games they shouldn't have. Games that we thought were going to be great to watch that were boring. It's been all over the place.
Absolutely. So let's get things off. Let's kick it off with the must-see television category. In case you're new to the show, we do several categories. The first one is always must-see TV, and it's which games, plural, because must-see television can be more than one thing. I'm going to let you go first because I know exactly where you're going to go.
Yeah, there's 2 games, and one of them's a landslide victory. It's the Washington Commanders and the Baltimore Ravens.
Yes.
I don't know. This is the game that you referred to earlier that was CBS protected because NBC was trying to get it. And I'm sure there was some behind the scenes negotiations of maybe something weird they were offering for that. But Jaden Daniels versus Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson coming off of one of the best games of his career.
Sure.
In we're going to hopefully if the Ravens win, I guess they'll start calling him the Tiger Killer or something. He'll have beaten Burrow and Daniels in back-to-back weeks.
Yeah.
But this is a big one. This is going to be a fun, exciting game. Right now the 2 guys playing the best quarterback in the NFL. If you're not talking about Patrick Mahomes, this looks fun, and looks like there's probably going to be some points scored.
Last week, go back to the Bengals-Ravens game. It was one of those games where, if you like defense, look away. Just look away because there was not a lot of defense played. I'm wondering which defense in this game is actually going to be better because the Ravens defense is not your typical Baltimore Ravens defense this year.
Not at all.
They are giving up a lot of points. The Commanders defense has actually been at least more steady under Dan Quinn. This isn't a prediction show, but I'll tell you this. I like the Commanders' odds here, especially getting 6.5 points, by the way.
The points is crazy in this game.
Crazy. That's one of those where you're looking around like, I feel like this is a trap. Is this a trap? I like the Commanders in this game.
I mean, and the Commanders just 2 weeks ago played Kyler Murray and gave up 14 points. And I'm not saying Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson are the same player, but they're both athletic quarterbacks that get out and move and can throw the ball downfield. So they've at least shown that they can have success against another mobile quarterback. The Ravens being favored by 6.5 is crazy, but this should be a fun game. And I think this is the game where we find out Washington has shown some. They were bad against the Bengals when there wasn't a punt in the entire game.
Yeah.
But they've shown in a few games the ability to play some defense. If they can play some defense a little bit against Baltimore, I just can't believe that Baltimore is going to stop the Commanders. The Commanders are on an all-time like efficiency as far as the amount of punting they're doing is crazy in 5 games. If Baltimore is not causing the Commanders to punt significantly, this could actually get out of hand.
Yeah,
I'm excited about this game. It's a fun one
for sure. And this is again one of those games. It's going to be a repeat of last week. If you like defense, look away. Just look away. I'm going to guess that the other game that you would view as must-see television would be Lions-Cowboys at 4:25.
Yeah.
And this is in Dallas. And I tell you what, you hit the nail on the head last week when we were talking about the Sunday night game, which kind of was Monday morning game, which was Pittsburgh and Dallas. You said the narrative is going to be who loses this game and not who wins. And boy, were you spot on. The Steelers losing that way at home. Weird game, weird not starting until 9:45 Eastern time, all that stuff. The Cowboys get a huge win. They're 3-2. The Lions are coming off their bye. They're 3-1. It's going to be a good one.
That entire game, and again, we're looking forward, not backwards. That entire game came down to Dak Prescott jumping on a fumble. Yep. That was an incredible play by Pittsburgh. And there was a Pittsburgh Steeler there about to get the ball, and Dak jumped on it, changes the entire game. And I think the narrative would be way more the other way if he doesn't get that after the way that Dak turned the ball over. But now it's just kind of quiet on the Cowboys front. There's not really because they didn't play good enough to get the publicity, but there's just nothing. And then the Steelers are the team, falling apart. And do they need to change quarterback? And do they need to fire a coach? And like what's all that kind of stuff is going on.
If the Cowboys beat the Lions, though, that's going to be a big statement win for them. And that would move them to 4-2, and they're beat to hell. I mean, it was like a mash unit already, and they lost several players in that Sunday night game last week in Pittsburgh. So it's going to be a tough test, especially for a Lions team coming off a bye, but that's going to be a good one. Are there any other games that you see on the slate that you're like, you know what, that could fall into the must-see TV category?
Not must-see, I wouldn't say. You can kind of get a little bit of squinting towards an Arizona-Green Bay game.
You got to squint pretty damn hard if you're me.
And more of it's kind of some of it's the contracts that both of those quarterbacks are getting that neither one's being consistent about deserving. I predict that somebody will win that game. And that
what a bold prediction.
the quarterback coming out of it's going to kind of have another kind of reprieve and less negative publicity. The loser is it looks bad on him.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's go to our next category, fantasy lineup games. So these are games that maybe they're intriguing to you because there's going to be a lot of fantasy production, or maybe it's a game that's just so bad that unless you have someone in the lineup that is on your fantasy team, you're watching. What is a fantasy lineup game for you?
I mean, that Commanders Baltimore games, it's got some people in it on both teams. Brian Robinson is back from, I believe it was a concussion that had him out a little bit. He looks like a real running back. And newsflash, Derrick Henry's not done.
Yeah.
Yep. He looked like Derrick Henry again. And then there's some weird stuff going on that you got to think about in fantasy. Mark Andrews has not been Mark Andrews. Isaiah Likely's actually maybe been their better tight end, but neither one's dominating enough to get a lot of publicity there. But you got the two quarterbacks and McLaurin. And there's a couple of Washington players kind of doing some fringe stuff to where you'd think about throwing another receiver or tight end in there in your lineup.
Now, I just talked bad about this game earlier, and it was a game that NBC wanted out and they wanted to flex the Ravens and Commanders. That's the Bengals and Giants. Now, Malik Neighbors, maybe he plays because he sat out last week with a concussion. If he does play, that might be a player you want to think about starting. Why? The Bengals are going to score points. And Jamar Chase is starting to pick it up again with T. Higgins back in the lineup. And he went off against Baltimore. And he and Joe Burrow, their connection is strong anyways. And T. Higgins is another guy that you're probably going to have on a lot of fantasy lineups as well. So for those players, I don't know if I'm going to go as bold as saying like Danny Dimes would be a player you pick up. I wouldn't do that. But still, I think there's some fantasy value in this game.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Bengals are loaded with players that you're going to get some points from.
Have you heard any update on? There's another game I was going to bring up. Any update on AJ Brown for Philadelphia?
He's expected to play, I think, is the general consensus.
Okay. And the Eagles are coming off of their break, their bye. I think this is a game as well against Cleveland, where if you're looking at some Philadelphia Eagles that are staying fresh, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, if AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, all those guys, that's a team that's offensively loaded with players that you're probably having on a fantasy roster. Cleveland, not so much. I don't know if Nick Chubb plays. He's back at practice, maybe, but
I think it'd be a very limited role with a couple of carries just to get him out there for a couple of weeks, probably.
Yeah, that's what I would think as well. Any other games for fantasy purposes you're looking at?
Yeah, for fantasy purposes, do not have any players on your team from the Chargers versus Broncos game.
Okay.
Because now, unless you have the Broncos defense, but outside of the Broncos defense, you should not have any Chargers or any Broncos on your fantasy team. Just if you see that game pop up, drop that person.
Avoid it like the plague. Hey, another team, Texans, Patriots. The Texans, now I know Nico Collins is going to be out for several weeks with a hamstring, and that sucks. But Tank Dell might be a player that you look to pick up.
And apparently Joe Mixon's going to be back.
And Joe Mixon will be back. Robert Woods will probably step in and get some more reps. I know they have Steven Sims, I think, down there, who used to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. He was inactive last week, but he'll probably start seeing some reps. But they're going to score points, and they're going against the Patriots, who, by the way, are starting Drake May.
It's time. The new era has begun.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I can't imagine that it's a good idea, but Jacoby Brissett I don't think he was ever considered the answer. It was at some point it was going to Drake May. And so maybe Houston and their defensive coaching staff isn't the first game I would choose for him, but at least it's at home. He needs to play at home and it's not too cold yet. So.
All right, let's go to sneaky good matchups. These are matchups that might not be getting a lot of national attention, but still you're looking at it and saying, man, like this isn't must-see TV like that first category, but I think this could be a pretty good game. What do you got there?
Well, I mean, it's I don't know if it's sneaky so much. We just haven't talked about it. But the Buffalo New York game we have avoided so far. Interesting things on both sides. Little bit of news coming out with the New York Jets moving on from their coach.
Just a little bit.
Very interesting to me, considering that he's a defensive coach and their defense has been really good for the last 2 years, including this year. They're not losing because of their defense. So it's an interesting move to, maybe take away the guy who's responsible for the one good thing you're doing. And also, like Robert Saleh did already have before he was fired, had a team meeting saying he was changing the offensive play caller. So I don't know. It's a weird one. Now, does that help them? Does that light a fire under the Jets? Does it allow, or does it make Aaron Rodgers play quarterback like he's good again? Maybe. And then the Bills, who 2 weeks ago were the killers they beat the Ravens. They destroyed them. They looked like they were the next great team. Not the Ravens.
They got destroyed by the
Ravens. But they played one of the best games of Josh Allen's career against the Texans 2 weeks ago, and we were like ready to crown them with Tua going down. They're going to walk through the division. They're number 1 seed, and then they just haven't been good the last 2 weeks at all. Josh Allen, before the concussion, didn't have a concussion. Was that a concussion? Did not look good at that point either. So it's an interesting game where like neither team can lose this game. Like they both need to win desperately.
Well, it's funny when you're talking about the Jets and the Robert Salah situation, and every time you said Jets, I wanted to stop you and say, just say Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder what the Jets were thinking. No, Aaron Rodgers. I wonder what Aaron Rodgers
Clearly,
thinks.
Aaron Rodgers went and said, "This is not my coach."
Yes. And it just goes to show you Aaron Rodgers is full of it. You know, he's the one that stood up there and like, yeah, it was kind of an odd interaction between you and the head coach there after that touchdown. And well, he's not much of a hugger, so you know we didn't do that, and it was more of like a chest bump thing. Whatever. The inmate, and I see that singularly, runs the asylum there, and so it will be interesting to see how this plays out for the Jets. I'm super curious about this game, and especially because in 2 weeks, that's who the Steelers play on Sunday Night Football. So that'll be interesting as well.
Can I sell you at all on the 1-4 Jaguars who just scored 37 points, playing the Bears, and there's are the Jaguars? I mean, have they fixed some things? Have they figured anything out? Can Trevor Lawrence actually throw for 370 yards?
That's a London game.
Yep.
Nice.
And then
I didn't know
Caleb Williams has been playing good. It's also sneaky good because I mean it's the only game on at 9:30 in the morning Eastern Standard Time. So and Caleb Williams has improved each of the last 3 weeks, looking better, and going to being smarter with the ball, and now spreading out, still being smart with the ball, but actually throwing downfield a little bit too. Looking like a good rookie.
Yeah. Yeah, that you can sell me on that one. Let me sell you on this one. I'm gonna call this because you said it last week with Steelers Cowboys. It's the narrative game of the week, where depending on how this game plays out, the narratives are going to be crazy. That's Cleveland at Philly. Cleveland at Philly. Cleveland 1-4. Philly coming off a bye 2-2. If Philadelphia loses this game at home, coming off of a bye week,
there might be another firing.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Sirianni, there's your pink slip, pal. Have a good one. Like, seriously, that's where I think this is going. And then if Cleveland loses this game, I can't help but think,
what can they do?
Kevin Stefanski, the two-time coach of the year.
Why would you fire him? Nobody else is taking that job.
Oh, I know. Trust me, I get it. But
nobody good is taking that job.
Exactly. That's why, to me, this is the narrative game of the week. Because whoever loses this game, what a crap storm that's going to be after it, for whatever reason. I think Philly's going to win it. I think Cleveland's going to plunge to 1-5. They're going to start talking about major changes. They're going to talk about quarterback changes, getting Jameis Winston in there. I think there is a ton of intrigue in this game on that pure fact alone. The narrative's coming out afterwards.
In 2025 and 2026, not combined, in each year, Deshaun Watson counts $72,935,000 against the cap in both years. It's 36 million. No, 72,935,000 in 2025, 72,935,000 in 2026 against their cap. Like you can't do that. You have to restructure it for longer. You have to keep paying him because you can't pay him that amount in those 2 years. It's
they'll put void years. They'll put void years in the contract, and they'll kick the can further down the road. But they got to pick it up at some point. And it's going to come due. But he's playing like trash. They're not protecting him at all. He's got to run for his life all the time, and he's getting no help. I saw a play last week in the loss to the Commanders. He hits Jerry Jeudy with a perfect pass, and Jerry Jeudy just flat out dropped it. So he's not getting a lot of help either.
Well, also too, I know your Steelers love to trade for wide receivers. Amari Cooper hates Deshaun Watson. Watching them play together, it looks like he just wants to get out of there. And I don't think Amari Cooper's terrible at all.
No.
He's a good trade candidate to go somewhere. But also Deshaun Watson walked off the field in the middle of a play where his coach is calling.
Did you hear the context though about that? Did you see what happened? They had 12 players in the huddle. They didn't want to burn a timeout. And so he was walking off the field because what are you going to do? I can't go in the huddle. And so they took a 5-yard delay. Stefanski was livid, but they had 12 in the huddle. Because I was like you, I saw that. I was like, holy cow, he just walked off the field.
Did you count the players, and who counted the players for Deshaun Watson? Like how is he sure there was 12 people on the field?
I mean, I feel like there's a massage joke in there somewhere that I'm just going to let it go.
Yeah,
All
I mean,
right.
I guess, yeah,
That's the narrative. That's the narrative game of the week, man, and that makes it
for sure.
sneaky good in my opinion. So, all right, let's I got to say too, I love divisional games that are tight that mean something. I think Bucks Saints is going to be another one of those games which is going to be it's going to have a lot of significance within the division early in the season. Baker Mayfield, did he get a little banged up last week? I can't remember. Last time they played on Thursday night last week.
He's not listed on their
Okay.
virtual. Um, but let me just say I disagree with you because Derek Carr is hurt.
Oh yeah, what was the diagnosis?
He has an oblique injury.
Oh boy.
He is not going to. I'm going to say he's a really tough guy. He's come back for some injuries where he didn't miss games. I think he misses 2 games. I don't think it's because of him. I think the medical staff is going to tell him, no, it's an oblique injury from throwing the ball. You cannot play for the next 2 weeks. And we're going to start a Jake Haener or Spencer Rattler against the worst offensive line in football. We've got all third stringers in the middle of our offensive line, and we're facing Vita Vea. Chris Jones just wrecked the interior of our scrappy offensive line, and now Vita Vea the next week. I don't like it. I'm not real positive about how that one can go. But
Spencer Rattler time.
It would be kind of cool to watch Spencer Rattler play some football.
Hey, there's intrigue there.
Start the hype train right up until the game kicks off.
All right. Any other sneaky good matchups that you have?
Nope.
All right. Very good. Let's move on to you could only watch one category. I know where you're going to go. So
yeah, I mean, it's not even close. It's that Commanders and Ravens game. I think it's so much fun. There's no way it lives up to the hype, right, Jeff? There's no way it lives up to the hype.
I think absolutely it lives up to the hype. I think it does.
I'm so excited about it.
I think it does because I think that the Ravens are clicking on all cylinders. The Commanders are clicking on all cylinders. You're getting 2 high-powered teams that are the only thing that sucks about this game is it's at 1:00 on a Sunday and it's not a primetime game. It's not even a 4:25 slate where it's protected by CBS and it's going to be basically a nationally televised game. That's the only thing that sucks. I think this is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. All right. That was easy. Let's go to dud of the week. We have several options here for the dud of the week because there are some crappy games. But some of these crappy games, man, if I'm being honest, I went back and was like looking, and I listened to our podcast to make sure it sounds good and we're not sounding like a bunch of blowholes. But anyways, I was like, you know what? Some of these games that we picked for dud of the week actually turned out to be pretty good games. So who do you have this week for dud of the week?
Yeah, this was also a landslide for me. It's the Colts and the Titans. Will Levis coming off his first bye week of the year.
Is he starting over Mason Rudolph?
Do what?
Is he starting over Mason Rudolph?
I have no idea. But I probably won't know after the game unless one of them makes like a highlight reel interception again. This just, I mean, I know that you have a soft spot for Joe Flacco, so this game could personally be interesting to you. But this, especially if Jonathan Stewart doesn't play. Did I just say Jonathan Stewart?
You did, like the old Panther.
Yeah, not him. But this Jonathan Taylor, if he's still injured and doesn't play, like this could be a really terrible dud game.
Yeah. I'm actually going to go with the game you brought up a little bit earlier, and that is Chargers Broncos. Justin Herbert playing, and they're coming off of a bye week, so maybe he's healthy. That's a high ankle sprain. I listened to a Sean Payton clip for about 3 minutes when he was trying to explain to the media why he said that Bo Nix still has some Ferris Bueller in him that he needs to get out. And he said that he'll do things on the field that he doesn't like. And like you said it because you were obviously Sean Payton being in New Orleans for all those years. If Bo Nix just does what he's told, he'll be fine. He doesn't like ad-libbing and anything like that. So
I can explain this joke to you and why it wasn't funny to you because you don't know something about Sean Payton.
Okay, because I know Ferris Bueller. I love that movie.
Yeah. So Sean Payton was a coach under Bill Parcells, and it's still his mentor. They're still really close. But Bill Parcells talked about, and he said that Sean Payton used to come with him to all these like crazy offensive plays he wanted to run. And he said he was just Dennis the Menace and stop being Dennis the Menace. So Sean Payton's kind of using that same line that he got from Bill Parcells, but just using a different reference point of Ferris Bueller to do. I mean, I think that Sean Payton's like laughing to himself about it. Like, oh, I've turned into Bill Parcells. I'm passing it on. But yeah, like Sean Payton also, I guarantee it's good that he's being funny about it, because I guarantee Bo Nix got his ass chewed and didn't have a good day. But I mean, also Sean Payton is the kind of person that's gonna have a lot of respect for Bo Nix standing up for himself and being like that. That I think that was a big moment for their relationship. Bo Nix just needs to play a little bit better to keep that relationship from souring.
I mean, this is the game. Like, I don't know. I just don't see a lot of high-powered scoring here. Both defenses are good. If I'm gonna watch just a random game, I want to be entertained. I want to see some scoring. So that's why if I wasn't a
I
Steeler
thought you
fan,
were a Steelers fan.
if I was a Steeler fan, I would never watch them play football.
You're like, I get enough of this watching the Steelers. I don't need it from the Broncos or the
Exactly.
Chargers.
Exactly. If I wanted to see questionable quarterback play and no points scored, I would just watch the team that I cover and I've grown up watching. But all right, there you go.
It is with the Broncos the one thing. Like, their defense is fun to watch, and like I haven't been able to watch enough to know if Patrick Surtain is the best cornerback in football. But the little bit I have seen, he's really fun to watch. Like, play great defense, and
absolutely.
I mean, and they're playing dumb quarterbacks that keep throwing at him. So you actually get to see him make some plays.
Yeah. Hey, and I'm not going to say it, but I will actually. George Pickens kind of got the best of him in week 2, their matchup in Denver. It was actually, anyways, that's neither here nor there. That's another show. So, Wesley, any final thoughts?
Been injured the last couple of weeks, or is he still playing?
No, he's got some good eye black. The eye black will be all ready to go for next week.
You sure that's not a tattoo? You sure it's not just tattooed on? Does he actually put that on in between games?
That was the first. I swear it was a first. Oh my gosh. All right, let's finish this thing, man. You got any final thoughts about week 6?
I mean, it's honestly just overwhelming to me. Like, yes, the Lions Dallas game's a little bit interesting, and I don't think either team's necessarily played that good, but they're still, but the state of the NFC, both of them are sort of healthy enough on offense to be the team that could come back and win the NFC. But this, I mean, this Commanders Ravens game, if you're just going crazy, like this is your early Super Bowl of week 6. I mean, this is, if things continue trending the way they are, it's Baltimore or the Chiefs in the AFC, and it's Washington head and shoulders above everybody with the state of the 49ers. So it's a pretty cool like matchup, with hitting at just the right time with both of these quarterbacks coming off incredible games last week.
It's going to be a good slate of games. Thursday night, 49ers Seahawks. It's a division game. They're typically closer football games. Both of these teams need to win. You got the 9:30 game that you mentioned, Jags and Bears overseas. You've got the 1:00 Commanders Ravens. You've got Detroit Dallas at the 4:25. And Sunday night, well, we'll skip that. But Bills and Jets on Monday night. That's not going to be bad. So it's going to be a good week. But Wesley, covering the Saints, where can they find your work and how can they find you on social media?
Well, we were talking about changing the podcast to I Cry a Lot podcast, but we're just going to keep it as at Dome Patrol Podcast. So you can find us at Dome Patrol PCast on Twitter or X, and you can find me at HootAtWesley13. Jeff, how can we get in touch with you?
Well, before we talk about that, I did see your all's post today on Twitter/X about the head coach. Was there room on the door or not?
The consensus was to not let him get out of the icy water.
It's a Titanic reference for those that didn't see it. Go look up the Dome Control. I had to laugh out loud when I saw that this morning. All right, so you can find me at the Steel Curtain Network. If you just search Steel Curtain Network anywhere, you get podcast, steelcurtainnetwork.com, and check me out on Twitter at jhartman, HERTMAN _PIT. Wesley, man, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks a lot. We'll talk next week.
Thank you.